Well, hello, boys and girls. It's when we feel like 8 o'clock. I'm Pearloism, and you're listening to my NHL Pearls of Wisdom, or the Pearlo Show, as we like to call it here now. Welcome to the live, everybody that's been waiting in the chat room there. Tell me who you are. Put connect down there in the chat room. Over here, if you look, we have John the Goats from Off the Wall Hockey. So fortunate to have you here today. Thanks for coming in, John.
Hey, thanks for having me, Pearlo. It's always great to be on when I get the chance, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you are. That was you. So, well, we might as well just get right to her. We're going to be talking hockey today, if you don't know that. Should be able to figure that out pretty much from everything that's on the thumbnail and all that. We'll be talking hockey. We'll be talking about all the games last night. But first order of business, fortunately for us, we got some nice juicy news
Oh,
right
yeah.
before we came on the air.
Oh, yeah.
We sort of predicted this, actually, though, didn't we, John?
Yeah, I actually started talking about this 2 weeks ago on my show with Steele, that Ron Hextall was going to be one of the top candidates for the Pittsburgh Penguins job. And I thought it was really interesting how such a legendary Philadelphia Flyer could go on and be the GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins. But to me, it makes all the sense in the world, especially with what Hextall did with Philly and the drafting and development approach that he has is something that I think Pittsburgh desperately needs. Because they're a sinking ship at this point, and they're going to need a real influx of young talent to get that franchise back heading in the upwards direction rather than the downwards one. So it was announced today that Hextall is the new general manager of Pittsburgh. Brian Burke is also joining as the president of hockey operations, which
Yes.
I think is a very interesting move because that's a complete philosophical switch for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Burke is very much an old school guy and a guy who values character and toughness and the hard work of players, whereas Pittsburgh has been much more of a speed and skill team over the last number of years. So having Brian Burke in there is really a complete 180 from a philosophy standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But obviously, they hired him for a reason. During the interview process, I'm sure that the plan, the direction of the team, and all of that was heavily discussed, and that's why the Penguins ownership has gone with these two new hires. And I really like Hextall in that spot because look at what he did in Philadelphia with the drafting and development there. And that's what he is. He's a draft and development GM. He doesn't go out and give out big money on the free agent market.
Yep.
He doesn't he doesn't try and swing for the fences usually with home run trades. He wants homegrown talent. And, Carter Hart, Travis Sanheim, Phil Myers, Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, the young talent, Travis Konechny, the young talent that Philadelphia Flyers team is really benefiting from having now is there because of Ron Hextall. And I think
Yep.
he needs to take that same approach and do the same thing with the Pittsburgh Penguins because when you look at their farm system, they are dry. They've got really not much down in the minors right now. They don't have
Yep.
a real lot of young up and coming high end talent. They're trying to cling to relevancy with Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, and those guys' days. I mean, Crosby's always going to be a great player, but Malkin has done nothing this year. He looks like he's pretty much had it at the end. He's not even really the effort level isn't even there with Malkin. Letang's had injury problems throughout his career and is 33 now, so you can't rely on him to be a number one guy forever. They're going to need a Ron Hextall type GM who can draft young talent, and I think that they're going to need some patience in Pittsburgh because it's not going to be an overnight fix. They're gonna they're gonna have to go down before they go back up. But if there's a general manager that will get you back up, it's Ron Hextall.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and just to extend that a little bit, he he his team fast. It wasn't just a rebuild; it was a fast rebuild. He got picks quick, uh, picked
Hmm.
well, and like you said, developed well. Like
Yeah.
with and that's pretty much, I'm sure, what they're looking at here is in Pittsburgh, like any owner would, right? Nobody wants to go through a Detroit Red Wings rebuild or Edmonton Oilers rebuild or
Buffalo Sabres.
Buffalo Sabres. Well, I don't even know if you call it a rebuild. It's just a re always. What?
A decade of the same thing.
Yeah, there's nothing building.
Yeah.
It's just a flat, yeah, going nowhere. Uh, so yeah, that's why they got him. And Brian Burke, who I think is perfect in that role that they just gave him. He is he's done great. He did great things in Vancouver. You can say whatever you want. Okay, everybody knew about the Sedins were that they were there that good, but he did go out and get them. And
Hmm.
he made some big trades and turned that Vancouver organization around where they really didn't go anywhere before him. Brought in some very good players, and it wasn't he brought him to the finals, and then went to Toronto, and he
Well, he won a cup with Anaheim.
and won a cup with Anaheim. That's right. He was a part of the process of bringing in Pronger, Niedermeyer, all the Niedermeyers,
Hmm.
all of that. He built strong teams there, and I don't know why he catches flack by a lot of people. He's an old school way of thinking, I guess. I mean, he did some pretty out of the box stuff when he was in the as a general manager for the time. I
Hmm.
don't think he's opposed or he's just going to follow a line because it's an old school way of thinking. Yeah, he does like toughness. Well, I don't care who you are. If you're a new school thinker and think that toughness isn't important, you're not going to be in the league very long, aka Shaka. You
Yeah.
know, even in Toronto, where Dubas gave it a shot and now just realized, no, I was wrong. Good for him. I think he's a smart guy,
Yeah.
and
No, Dubas is a very smart
yeah, he's
GM.
extremely smart, intelligent guy, and he was willing to go. You know what? It's not all about analytics here. We got to get some toughness, and he went out and got it, and you're seeing the benefits of that. So, um, you know, kudos to him for that. They change. Great minds can think outside of the box or change. So I think the pairing is great. If it's a big achievement or what is it task. It's a big task to
Hmm.
rebuild that Pittsburgh team, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. And they have no first round pick, no third round pick, no fourth round pick, and no sixth round pick in this draft. So it's a completely different approach now for the Penguins. They were getting rid of draft picks to bring guys in like Zucker and um, they tried the Bugstad move. They traded a first round pick for Kapanen. Like they've been going with a very different approach. Now they're gonna want some of those draft picks back, and I have a feeling that by the time we get to the end of this season, Pittsburgh is not gonna be missing a draft pick in 4 rounds of this coming 2021 draft.
Yeah.
Hextall is going to get some of those picks back for sure. He's going to make moves that are going to bring draft picks back to the Pittsburgh Penguins because that's how he builds things. And that's going to be an important thing for the Penguins is to not go out of their way to get rid of those picks and try and make moves for guys like Matheson and Zucker and all these guys that can be good players but aren't really going to put you over that hump and really push you back to the top. I mean, Zucker came in last year and Pittsburgh still lost in the first round and I don't even think Pittsburgh's going to make the playoffs this year.
No.
Looking at them, I don't trust their goaltending. I think their defense is even worse.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're getting in the playoffs this year. They're going to need to do some sort of quick turnaround, rebuild or retool there, and Hextall's going to do it through the NHL draft because that's the way he does it. And Brian Burke has been a decent guy as far as drafting and development goes as
Yeah.
well. One of my favorite Brian Burke moves ever is when he talks about the 2012 NHL draft when he was with the Leafs and they had Morgan Riley
As a number
number
one.
one
Yep.
as number one on that board. And if you look at the guys that were taken ahead of Morgan Riley's the best player out of all of
Yep.
them. That 2012 draft was notoriously bad.
Yep.
That was the year that Yakupov went first. And obviously, they wanted nothing to do with Nail
Yeah.
Yakupov, and that was rightfully
Right
so.
out of
But
his right out of his mouth.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, he said a scout tried to fight Yakupov during their draft interview
Wanted to
because he was
punch him
such
in the
a
face. Yeah.
yep, because he was such a standoffish, arrogant little kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Yakupov was a complete bust. Ryan Murray went second overall. He's had a really injury riddled career and has never lived up to being a top 3 draft pick. Galchenyuk had that one huge year with the Canadiens and hasn't done anything since. Griffin Reinhart never even really made the NHL other than a few games. So Morgan Riley was the best player taken in that top 5, and really looking down the list, he was the best player taken in that entire top 15. Probably not until you. Morgan Riley's probably the best player taken in 2012 until you get down to Andrei Vasilevsky at number 19. So they were spot on having Morgan Riley at pick number 1 on their boards there,
Yep.
and that was a great pick. And Burke's not a dumb guy. He's been around the game for a long, long time, and there's a reason why. He knows his hockey very well. He does have a very kind of old school way of thinking around some things, and he certainly does value toughness and more than a lot of the younger management and front office guys do. But that still wins. I mean, we look at Tampa Bay, what they had to do last year to finally get over that hump and go all the way to a cup. Pat Maroon, Barclay Goodrow, Blake Coleman, Luke Shen on the back end. Like, it wasn't until Tampa Bay got tough that they were able to go all the way. And I think that these two are going to do a very good job with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yep. No, I totally agree with you. He does definitely go the way of truculence, as he likes to call it, and he's a figure that is very he's very upfront. Like, people know who he is, and he's direct. That's the word I'm looking for.
Oh, yes.
He's a
Very direct and honest.
He's a very direct, honest guy. He doesn't mind being out in the public. He doesn't mind being known about what he's doing or having an opinion. And in doing so, you were able to see how good he was at what he did. Like, in that draft was absolutely a fantastic example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, if they didn't have Yakupov, they had Murray on
Yep.
that draft, and and he came right out and said, "This guy's gonna." And I remember people at the time chuckling, like, "Oh yeah, right, he's going to be the best." Like, they were actually chuckling at him. And, well, he had the last laugh, didn't he? Because that's
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened there. So
He was certainly the best player taken in that top 10.
yeah, he wasn't not in the draft. Yeah, you go down lower in the draft, then there was probably, and I don't have it in front of me, but there was probably better players taken lower in that draft, I imagine. He,
Yeah, I didn't look through the whole list.
yeah,
I think Andrei Vasilevsky is probably the best one, but goaltenders are a complete crapshoot most of the time, so there was really no way to foreshadow that necessarily.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
goalies are very hit or miss when it comes to drafting, particularly drafting goaltenders high.
yeah, yeah. You can't really blame anybody for that. But in that, and again, even with Vancouver, and there's been many times where has, where he's picked off the board and it's worked out well while he was the
Hmm.
one in. It has a lot to do with your staff too, don't, of course. But
Yeah,
when
the
you
scouting staff
when
does a lot of
everywhere
that.
you go, the scouting department seems to get better. Maybe you have something to do with it. So
Yeah.
that's I'm just sharing this on my Patreon, who, by the way, that Chanel person that said hi down there is a
Yep.
Patreon member. She came and said
Oh,
hi.
very nice.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. She's awesome. We love you, Chanel. All right, let's get into our games tomorrow. There was, unless you want to add more onto that. The only thing is, I will say that I wanted to continue with Brian Burke there, is I don't think either one of these guys make the Kapanen trade.
No, definitely not. They are not giving up a first round pick for Kasperi Kapanen. And I said at the time that Pittsburgh gave up way too much for Kapanen. And I think throughout throughout the last few years, you've seen Pittsburgh give up too much in trades because they're just trying to hang on to that win now philosophy and get that get that one last long deep run that probably wasn't coming. And now we've seen them lose the first round 2 years in a row. And I don't think either of these guys would have okayed that deal at all. No, this is going to be definitely a new approach for the Pittsburgh Penguins, where it's not going to happen overnight. It's a much longer, drawn out process, but they're going to draft and develop and wait for those young guys to make the NHL impact, and then they'll fill in around those young guys with the veteran core pieces that they can get through free agency or through trades, but they're not going to go out of their way to reach for moves when they can just draft and develop their own guys.
Yeah, I would say the same with Zucker. Yeah, it's going to be a totally different thing. And I wouldn't. I might even say that that Kapanen trade might have been the straw that where upper management said, "Yeah, where are we going here?" You know.
See, for me, it would Mike Matheson. To me, was
Oh,
a worse deal
well,
because
maybe both of them
Matheson's
combined.
just
Yeah,
brutal.
yeah, maybe both of them combined.
Matheson's brutal. So I mean that to me, giving up Hornquist for Matheson and Sevier is just like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, yeah, yeah. It only took Lemieux and the gang to watch Matheson on the ice for a while,
Yeah,
and
and don't forget Cody Cece.
Cody. I can't say his name without chuckling.
I know. It's like, why is he even in the league?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I had like a really good laugh after they traded for Matheson, and then Cody Cece's name popped up on my freaking phone going to Pittsburgh. I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, Ruthie, you're pretty much on your way out, which of course he is. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But I mean, say what you want. Rutherford built three cup teams. You know, it's you laugh, but he did it. He did it. A lot you can. He knew how to put a good mix of players together in the right situation at the right time. But
yes.
don't ask him for a second to rebuild anything. Or if you're
No,
on the
he was not a rebuild GM. He
no,
was a win now GM.
and if you're on the way down, he's not gonna. You
No.
gotta tell him you're on the way down because he
Yep.
doesn't know anything about that at all. He just knows how to make the best team possible at the moment, and that's it. So it was
Yeah.
time for him to go. I don't know. He said for private reasons, personal reasons, but I mean that's just a smart veteran thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
We may never know the actual reason why, but
no, but even if it's not real personal, I mean, I don't want to be in Pittsburgh anymore is a personal reason if you don't want
yeah.
anybody to know. So, and it's a great way to deflect all the media because they can't really ask you about personal reasons. So,
Yep.
yeah, it was
It was a savvy move on his part.
yeah, from a savvy guy who won three cups and deserves a lot. We'll get we'll get a lot. Like even when he left Carolina, he left the cupboard pretty much bare, right?
Yeah, that kept, he won the cup with them in '06, but then by the time he left, the Hurricanes were in shambles at that point.
Pretty much, yeah. So, anyways, we might as well. We'll get to last night's games. Um, in which case we'll be talking more about more news from yesterday. Let's just go to that game. We might as well.
Yep.
Might as well go to that game. That's the big news game from last night. Blue Jackets versus Hurricanes, and the Tortorella show continues.
Yeah, he benched Patrick Laine already. Now in this case, I did not see like the reason, like why Laine got benched. There was no definitive shift of Laine not doing anything, like the when Dubois got benched for the last time, and it was pretty obvious that he should have been. So I don't know what exactly transpired here, but Laine did not play at all in the final 26 minutes of the game. So the end of the second and all of the third, and the Blue Jackets come out with a win. So I guess it didn't cost them a win or anything, but it's just obviously big news now. All the talk is about what is going on. Already Laine just got here and he's already being benched after playing this is like his third game with the team or something like that, and he's already being benched. So there was a lot of questions before it even started. Um, about how Laine would get along with John Tortorella, because Laine isn't exactly known for being a high effort player all the time. Um, and it already seems like there's something going on there. So it continues with the Blue Jackets. It continues with Tortorella and star players. And I think at this point, if you're on the Columbus Blue Jackets, you pretty much have to know that if you're not giving 110% effort all the time, you're not going to be out there. I think it's funny, Jack Roslovic played 21-36 last night.
Yeah.
So obviously Roslovic is fitting in very well with Tortorella, and he had a beautiful goal that I believe was the game winner.
Yeah, one of the goals of the year
Absolutely
right there.
brilliant goal for Roslovic, and it seems like he's fitting in there fine, and Laine ends up sitting the bench for most of the second half of the game.
Yeah, for me, I think people make more of it than really it is. I've actually watched. I've been interested, so I've been watching the Columbus games against Carolina since Laine came in. And to
Mm.
tell you, I don't think it's even really Lione's fault. He looks lost out there right now because he's this is a totally. I mean, Tortorella's system is totally different. He has a,
Oh yeah.
it's totally different than anywhere where you're going to learn hockey really from,
Mm.
right? Certainly different from a European type system that they have there, and even different from what Winnipeg does with Maurice. And that,
Yep.
so he looked lost. I think it's sort of like at this point, I would have agreed with Tortorella that he was probably better not to be out there.
Yeah.
It was if it was not such a tight game, if you really needed a goal, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, but if you want to make sure that you're not going to get scored against while you're trying to score, it
Yeah.
wasn't a good place for Lion right there. And I'm not saying that Lion won't. I think Lion will figure it out. I like Lion. I mentioned it several times. He is definitely a different personality. There's no doubt about that. There
Oh
is
yeah.
there is an element of sarcasm that comes from Lion. And is he ever going to be a great defensive player? No. But I mean, Tortorella's worked with guys, had players on that team that, like Bjorkstrand, for instance, he's worked into his system that aren't
Hmm.
super strong defensively. Um, he asked for at least a minimum requirement, whatever his minimum requirement is to come back and stuff like that. But they work a system, and it's about flow. And Lyonnais never worked a system before. Sometimes he wants you to ice it. He wants you to slow the pace down. He wants you to do that.
Yep.
And if Lyonnais doesn't know when to do all this stuff, he's just been in the room for twice. So I don't put much stock in this, to tell you the honest truth. It's good for like what we do. It brings a nice
Yeah.
story around and stuff like that. But Cam Atkinson's been sat. Tortorella sits lots of guys. If he just doesn't feel for whatever reason that they are in the best spot for that game, you know, and that he'll talk about it afterwards with whoever it is that he does it to. But that's just the way Tortorella is. So I don't think it's really all that big of a deal. And from what I was watching of it, I don't really blame Tortorella for it. I don't know. I don't think there's necessarily right or wrong, but for what Tortorella does with his team, I think it was
Hmm.
probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, they're a very defensive minded team. And if you're not playing well defensively, if you just don't know the system enough yet, then he's not going to have you on the ice, particularly in a close game like this where they obviously cannot afford to give up a goal. I mean, this game was 2-2 heading into the third, and then Roslovic scored and made it 3-2, and it was all defense for Columbus was making sure they didn't get scored against. And if you have a guy like Laine who doesn't know the system yet and isn't performing well defensively with his responsibilities, then it obviously makes sense to not have him on the ice when you're not trying to not give up a goal. And looking at it, it obviously worked because the Jackets did win the game. and that was a big win for them over a tough opponent like Carolina. And we'll see. They do have a couple days off now before playing Chicago on Thursday, so maybe some more practice time will help Line get really acclimated to the system a little bit better. But
Yeah,
it's a big story every time Tortorella benches someone now, and
yeah, that's yeah.
Line's in line.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Atkinson's been benched, and it's Domi hasn't as of yet. But I didn't even think Boone Jenner's been benched, honestly, which is like they asked Atkinson about it. He goes, "Yeah, Tortorella does that all the time. I've been
Hmm.
benched. If he doesn't think you're putting out full effort, you're going to be benched," is what he said. Now, I don't
Yep.
know if Laine wasn't putting out full effort. What I saw was a guy who was second guessing himself because he didn't know exactly what to do in certain situations. And
Hmm.
people were his line mates were doing things like, "Whoa, what are you doing that for? What do I do now?" So with that in mind, then you brought up a really good point. If you got a couple days to practice after this, why put him out there and shake his confidence even worse, where he goes out and is in the wrong spot and um,
Coughs up a goal.
coughs up a goal, and it's just not a good space to put a new guy in. So
Yeah.
I think Lione will take it like a man because he takes everything like that, like a player, like a
Hmm.
true hockey player. I think Lione is actually a true hockey player. He just wants to be the best he can be, and he didn't think in Winnipeg he was getting that opportunity. And I can't say I disagree with him. I don't think he was either. Maybe they're both right. Maybe it's just the system didn't work, that he didn't work there or whatever.
Yep.
But I think he'll come around. He won't have any problems with this, and he'll come around and go and learn and be the best player he can be for the Jackets. I really do believe that. But Jack Roslovic, has fit like a glove. My
Yeah.
gosh, it's like second nature for him to do what he's doing out there. He's looked beautiful, and I also criticize this for Winnipeg because I couldn't understand at all why they weren't playing Roslovic higher in the lineup. Whenever I watched him play, I didn't see a guy that wasn't ready to play higher in the lineup. Did you?
I didn't get to see a ton of him in Winnipeg, but every time I did see the Jets play, he was always down on the third line, and he never really seemed to get an opportunity to move up into the top six. And now he goes to Columbus, and he absolutely gets a chance to play in the top six. He played over 21 minutes last night. He actually led all forwards on the Blue Jackets in ice time,
Mm-hmm.
and he's worked out very, very well so far with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's 7 games with the Blue Jackets. He already has 2 goals, 5 assists, and 7 points, including that game winner last night. So he's all of a sudden become after a career high of 29 points with Winnipeg, he's already now been a point per game player in his first couple weeks with the Blue Jackets.
Yeah,
So,
not too
uh,
shabby. Not too.
absolutely huge jump up for Roslovic.
Yeah, I mean, the way I'm seeing him right now. I mean, it's a small window, but uh, small sample size, as they like to say.
Yeah, very, but he looks so much more comfortable.
Well, he definitely looks more comfortable, but I mean, if he keeps up like this, that Dubois deal all of a sudden already, before you even add Lion to it, it starts to look pretty spurious, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean Dubois is playing tonight, I believe, his first game for Winnipeg. So
Oh, right.
we'll see how we'll see how he looks in a Jets uniform. But I mean, it looks like Columbus probably got the better of this deal, unless some things go really downhill with Line. But Roslovic, who was kind of the afterthought of this trade, all the talk was Line Dubois, Line Dubois. Roslovic was the afterthought, and he's been a point per game player in Columbus and looks fantastic. So that's another feather in the cap of Kekalainen there with the Blue Jackets, who just seems to have stolen Roslovic away. And Winnipeg, just for whatever reason, did not give him the opportunity that Columbus is giving him. And he's certainly taking advantage of it in Columbus.
Yeah, yeah. So, well, we should probably talk about the game itself a little bit. Uh, it was Nedeljkovic in net for Carolina. By the way, before we go on,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about that game right away here, Kevin, about D'Angelo. So we'll talk. We'll be talking about the Rangers and the Islanders game. So we'll talk about that. Stick around. Do you think D'Angelo will be traded? Is the question. Uh,
Hmm.
but anyways, Trocheck injured for Carolina. And when I found that out, I actually went out and put out a pick for Columbus to win this ML. Um, Even though Werenski is out for Columbus. But
Yep.
I just think that from what I've seen, it's really unfortunate because Trocheck's been kind of struggling after an injury, left Florida, went to
Hmm.
Carolina, and early in the season was looking balls out, and now he's in. I hopefully it's not long because
Yeah.
it's really unfortunate now if he were to go through a long injury again. I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. He struggled with injuries throughout his career. And they have Marty Nietzsche out of the lineup as well, who's also injured.
Yeah.
So Carolina definitely missing some key players. They fortunately did get some key players back recently. Jacob Slavin came back into the lineup. They are all those guys that were on the COVID list are pretty much back now. So
Yeah.
Carolina starts to get some guys back, and now they have more injury problems here as Nietzsche and Trocheck go out. And honestly, I thought Nedeljkovic was going to get lit up a little bit more than he did last night. He actually was okay for the Hurricanes,
Yeah.
which is nice to see because he hasn't always performed great when he's come up to the NHL level.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Might be the best night I've seen him play.
yeah, so if obviously with Mrazek out pretty long term, they're going to need Nedeljkovic to be able to win some games or and play some games. And it was a close game, and it was pretty much what you would expect between the Hurricanes and Blue Jackets. 3-2, fairly low scoring, defense first game. Um, but it's going to be one of those matchups that should be close every time.
Yeah. It's a different team. It was a different team without Trocheck, though. That I watched last night. They struggled a bit because of it, and I kind of thought they might. What? Just like I'm sure they can overcome that, but when you get a guy like that that's playing like that out first, it takes a while to adjust.
Hmm.
He has a way when he's playing on the top of his game to add something that's very hard to replace. He's a great playmaker. He's very underrated defensively.
Yep.
He's a very dynamic player and it's difficult to change on the fly when you lose somebody like that. One thing I will say with Columbus, and this is common though, right? That was the best game I've seen them play without Werenski in the lineup. And
Yep.
um, Del Zotto, like, what? Who saw this coming? Playing 20 minutes a night. He was -1, but whatever, plus minus, whatever. I saw him play last night. I was really
Yep.
impressed. I was really like I'm getting more and more impressed with this guy playing in this Blue Jackets system.
Yeah, Michael Del Zotto is had a nice year. He's played 14 games now. He's +8 on the season. He's got 4 assists, and he's playing a good in a role that where they've needed him to kind of play a decent amount of minutes, especially over the last few games. He was playing around 15, 16 minutes, but over the past few games, he's gone up over 18 minutes in each of the last 4 games and over 19 minutes in the last 2 games
Yeah,
with Werenski out. So he's had to play more, and he seems to certainly be taking advantage of the opportunity that the Blue Jackets have given him. And he's another guy that, he started his career with Tortorella with the New York Rangers, and now he's back with Torts in Columbus, and he's playing the best that we've seen him play in a long, long time at the NHL level. Um,
absolutely. Some of the best
so,
hockey I've ever. And he was supposed to be this, right? But for whatever
yeah.
reason, he's taken a while. But yeah, best hockey I think I've ever seen him play. The reason why he did play a lot of minutes also was, and this will be devastating again for Columbus, maybe not. They seem to be able to get through every injury and be fine. Kukin Kukan only played 5 minutes last night. I'm assuming he was injured. I didn't hear anything about that though. And even watching it, I don't remember anything specifically happening.
Yeah, if he only played 5 minutes, I would assume that he got injured at some point. Yeah, 5:57 last night. So, um, depth. We knew depth was going to be important coming into this season,
Yeah,
but some of these teams are really, really getting tested with it early here, and
yeah.
Columbus seems to be going through it. But Columbus is pretty deep on the back end. I think that's why they were able to trade guys like Murray and Nudivara away because they knew that they were deep back there. And I don't believe we've seen Andrew Peak yet for the
No,
Blue
I don't know. I
Jackets.
think he's down in the minors. They have Gabriel Carlson waiting in the wings.
Yeah, I'd like to see Andrew Peak get a look
So
because
would
he was
I.
a very good college player. And I think that when he does come up to the NHL, he's going to stay up at the NHL level. I think he's got a lot of two-way potential.
Yeah, for sure. Did you talk? Okay, some players need to change it up since sometimes it works. Okay, I didn't know exactly what that was relating to, but um, well, I lost my train of thought.
We were talking about Andrew Peak.
Andrew Peak, yeah, yeah. I was surprised he didn't make it, and that's another one. Like I guess they're just really being cautious with him. I will very seldom. I mean, there's not much you can say about Kekalainen. He hasn't made any wrong moves for wrong moves. So if
Hmm.
Kekalainen thought Del Zotto was a better was better for the lineup right now, then he probably was. But I really thought he played well last year when in the time that I saw him, when I was kind of expecting him to be in the lineup this year, but he didn't make it. One thing I will
Yep.
say before we head off here is finally, and maybe Brindamore gets Coach of the Year just for this alone. Nito Niederreiter is playing beastly hockey out there. He is playing. He's using his body, his physical size. He's playing the type of game that everybody was hoping Nino would have this year, and he's got 5 goals.
Yeah, he's got 5 goals in 10 games already this season. He's +6. This is a Nino Niederreiter that we have not seen since back in his Minnesota days when he had that 25-goal, 57-point season,
Mm-hmm.
which was all the way back in 2016-17 now. So it's been a few years since we've seen Nino Niederreiter look like this. And he certainly is off to a good start this year and looks significantly better than he did at any point last season. So that is good news for Carolina if Niederreiter can really get himself going and start being a legitimate middle six winger again that produces some offense. That'd be a big boost for the Carolina forward group for sure.
Absolutely, and Dzingel's been playing better. The the overall team, if they can get healthy, they're gonna. I think they're gonna knock it out of the park.
Hmm.
Even Gardner's been playing good games. So, I mean, that's something.
Yeah, I don't say that very often. So when you have Gardner playing well, that's
Yeah, so,
huge.
yeah. Again, just maybe those two things alone gets Brindy his first Adams, and he's going to get one. He's going to get one.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. Okay, we'll go to the game that Hockey News was talking to us about. Take me a little time here to get there because it's really slow. Okay, Islanders versus Rangers. I couldn't pull the trigger on the under here because I
I
think
wish
I,
I
I
did.
think I can finally do it. The Islanders had a little practice time there,
Hmm.
and there was some things just amiss. And leave it up to me to underestimate Barry Trotz, but right back at it they were last night, right?
Yeah, this was your quintessential New York Islanders under Barry Trotz kind of game. Very defensive. There wasn't even a goal scored until the third period. Islanders get 2 goals from their fourth line, of course, and
Yep,
they come out with a 2-0 win. Varlamov was absolutely
he
outstanding,
was so.
and
Yep.
that is really what stood out to me more so than anything else in this game. 30 for 30, stopped every single shot that he faced, and he looked absolutely phenomenal. If Varlamov is in net, I think it's safe to bet the under with the Islanders now, given the way that they've looked defensively in the past couple of games. And with Varlamov in goal playing like this, I mean, this guy's in the at least in the Vesna conversation after the first month or so of the season, given the way that he's played. And he was on fire last night. This was a very New York Islanders performance, to say the least.
Yeah, it was what you're looking for when you see the Islanders, and kind of that's what I wanted to see before I got back on that under train with the Islanders. It won't be
Hmm.
long before you're seeing fives on the board again if they keep on playing like that. Now the question came was, do you think D'Angelo will be traded? Well, we kind of beat this to death, but quite obviously, if he's going to be, nobody's in a hurry
Yeah,
because it's not happening yet. So,
yeah.
and the longer he sits, you got to figure the less likely, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. It was funny because right when the whole thing went down between him and the Rangers, there were all these reports about all these teams interested, and it seemed like a deal was going to get done, and that's all quieted down quite a bit here over the past few days. I don't know. I agree. The longer that he just sits and this goes on, I think the less likely that it is that anyone actually pulls the trigger. I have a feeling plenty of teams were calling about the asking price, but I also have a feeling that quite a few of those teams hung up the phone when they heard the asking price. So. Um, I don't know what's going to happen with that. Nobody can really predict the future. But it seems like a lot of the anticipation and a lot of the expectations that a deal was somewhat imminent with D'Angelo have really tempered down. And he's just sitting at home doing nothing right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's kind of also an overall thing, like maybe like sit in the corner, little boy.
Yeah,
Like everybody, like as
he got a timeout.
here. This is something that I think should be said. Managers, they're people too. Like all of these people are people, and
Hmm.
whatever D'Angelo is going through and trying to grow up to be, most of the managers out there want this young man to become a good, a good young man as a person, as a human being.
Yep.
And so if they feel they may a lot of the managers that may want to acquire him might think it's best for him to really get wiggle around in his seat for a while to really think about this. You know what I mean? Like what you've
Yeah.
done, to not just hand him another to what's the to not give him the sense of entitlement and take him right away and bring him in and all that kind of stuff like that. They might even have a deal in place, and if, and that team is like, you know what, let him sit there for a while, let him think about this for a bit.
Yep.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. So, and then you can converse with the agent and you can say, okay, we know what happened over there. We got to pound out something here where if your clients come in here, this is going to be the way it is, right? And then
Yep.
it goes back to him and he talks to and then it depends on his maturity to finally realize, okay, I got to change my ways here. Or, like you mentioned, you're going to the K.
Oh yeah, that you got to think that if a team does get D'Angelo, that this is absolutely his last chance in the NHL. Uh, I mean, the Rangers might have been his last chance if a deal ends up not getting done. But if another team goes out and does trade for D'Angelo and gives him an opportunity, this will absolutely be his last shot. So
Yeah.
it's really up to him to show that he's gonna be a better teammate, gonna be a better person, make himself worth something and valuable in the lineup. Um, or it is going to be the KHL for him, or out of hockey altogether, whatever he decides to do. Maybe he'll go on and become a political commentator on the news or something. I don't know, but This is got to be his last shot for Tony DeAngelo if he does end up getting moved. But I maybe it is like a sit in the corner timeout type of thing where they're waiting to pull the trigger on something, so he does have to kind of stop and think about it. But if the longer this goes on, the more I'm like, maybe there weren't as many teams in on this as people originally thought. And maybe he's not necessarily going to end up on a new team and be able to play that quickly. You know, it might be a more drawn out process, or he might end up being just done.
Yeah, I mean, also they said there was a lot of initial interest, but it's initial interest because until they find out why,
Yeah.
and then
A
it's
lot of those phones could have been hung up pretty quickly.
yeah, when they found out why, if they what was actually going on, or if they were trying to hide it, there's a lot of things, because it's going to
Yep.
come out. People are going to when you're talking about something like to that extreme where you're going to basically let a guy go for free, which is pretty much what they were doing. They were saying, "Hello, sports geeks, how you doing, buddy?" Just talking about D'Angelo here again because we're talking about the Islanders and Rangers game, um, which is basically it's got to be something fairly extreme. He still is a valuable asset and a 50-point guy. And a 24-year-old defenseman that can put up 50 points in the NHL. You don't just put him on waivers unless it's something pretty extreme. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I don't know what happened. Probably if I knew what happened, I'd have a better indication. But the way things are going, it looks like he may have to go to Siberia, as I like to call it.
It certainly could be headed that way without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay, so continuing on with our game. Yeah, like you said, it was basically if the Islanders can keep that up, then they're probably back. It really comes down to whether they can keep on playing that kind of system or not. Varlamov has been known to play like this. The problem with Varlamov has always been his endurance.
Yep.
Later in the season,
Yep.
things start to fall apart for Varlamov. It always seems to be the case. Um,
Except last year.
Even last year, they were falling off a bit until they got
Well,
to the
yeah, at
playoffs.
the end, and then he was great in the playoffs. But I guess they kind of had an off season in between the regular season and the playoffs,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that would make up for it. So yeah, when he has to play long stretches, you're right. When there's long stretches of continuous play, by the end of the season, he's pretty much cooked usually.
yeah. So the strength of the Sorokin kid is going to go a long way to see what the Islanders will be come closer to the end of the season,
Hmm.
because they're going to have to utilize him more. Put up huge numbers in the KHL, as everybody knows by now, probably. But he's a kid. Um, Dobson, I find, only played 11:40 last night. And I thought he was I mean, he's got 5 or 6 points already this season, something like that, maybe even more. Um, so kind of weird that he would have only played 11 minutes, possibly injury related, possibly, yeah, Green played 20. And that's not, for at his age, that might be a little high for him right now.
Yeah, but Green did play a lot. I noticed him out there quite a bit. So I don't know. Dobson didn't stick out as like a problem or particularly bad to me last night. So
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what was going on there with him only playing 11:40. But I did notice that Andy Green played a ton. And Pellick didn't play as much as he normally does either. And I thought Pellick overall had a really good game. He had an assist. He was +2, but he didn't even eclipse the 20-minute mark while four other defensemen did. So
Yep.
um,
I, sorry.
Pellick wasn't out there as much as usual either.
I think this really comes down to it when they had this break here. He's just gonna he Trotz tends to do this where he'll see early in the game, maybe you make a mistake or whatever the case may be, and he'll just rely on people at whoever he thinks are playing great that game. And tomorrow you go back at her again for your ice time. Start working
Yep.
for your ice time a bit because he was playing a lot of guys regularly the same ice time all the time. And I think he's just came out and said, you know what, you're going to have to work for your ice time. It doesn't matter who you are right now. We got to get back to where we were before. Wouldn't surprise me. That's his type of move that he does. So um, yeah, okay. As far as the Rangers are concerned, they played probably better defensively again. Lafreniere's still struggling a little bit. It's just not coming together for the Rangers right now. Now it doesn't help that you got Potato in the lineup on defense. That's not ideal. Their
Hmm.
defensive depth was going to be a problem. And but now you have, is Jack Johnson and Brandon Smith scratched? I know
They are injured.
Brandon Smith is
They are
hurt.
both.
Brandon Smith is hurt.
Yeah, they're both injured.
They're both injured. Okay.
Yeah, so Boteto and Hayek were the third pair last night for the Rangers, and they both played under 15 minutes. And Boteto was -2, Hayek was -1. It wasn't a great showing for them. It was actually Lindgren and Fox that duo was out. They were definitely the number one pair for the Rangers last night. That duo was on the ice a ton. Keandre Miller and Jacob Trouba also played. Miller was 2 seconds under 20 minutes. Trouba played over 21. He got power play time. Um,
Yeah.
Fox got a majority of the power play time, over 3 minutes. So
Keandre Miller looks fantastic for a young defenseman.
he's had a phenomenal start.
Mm.
Phenomenal start, without a doubt. I think he leads the team in plus minus right now, I believe.
Yeah.
He's like plus 8 or something like that on the season, which is obviously really, really good. And he's +7, and he's got 4 points in 11 games on the season. So he's had a really, really good start to his rookie season at just 21 years old.
Yeah, I've been really impressed. He's moved up the ranks really fast. It doesn't totally surprise me, but it kind of surprised me he's playing this well.
Hmm.
He doesn't look like a rookie out there at all. In a lot of nights I think he's looked actually better than Fox, which is saying an awful lot because Fox is a very good defenseman. But bodes well for them because they certainly need it. Hey CL, how you doing? What up? There's a lag, is there? Please let me know if that keeps on going. I got excellent connection here, so it says excellent connection on my side, so I think everything should be fine there. By the way, you were on live last night with Projo, right?
Yes, yeah, Joe and I did this Islanders Rangers game together. It was a fun time, of course, and it was a pretty interesting game. Very, very New York Islanders style game for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing for the Rangers moving forward is to be able to start getting an identity like the Islanders, right? They have to be able to control the game, and that's what they're
Hmm.
learning. They have a lot of wonderful tools, but they're still learning to be a team and play to their identity, whatever that is. Last year, it was the speed fast at the end of the season. It seemed that Quinn was able to motivate them to play a high tempo, high pace game for a full 60 minutes. Probably a system that's great for a short window, but over a season, you're going to have to learn more facets. And that's really where the New York Rangers are now, I think. You're going to be on live tonight too, right?
Yeah, I'll be doing the Tampa Bay and Nashville game tonight at 8:30. I was supposed to do the Flyers and Capitals game, but
Yeah.
obviously that's not happening now. So I'll be on just for one game tonight, and it will be the Lightning and Preds, who they've played some exciting hockey against each other, some very physical hockey against each other this season already. So I'm looking forward to it tonight.
Yeah. Preds they got to dig themselves out, boy. They
They're
are,
struggling.
man, oh man, a lot of people on the hot seat in that town, I think.
I didn't like John Hines from the beginning. Never mind, I didn't know why they hired him in the first place, and I'm not really surprised to see them struggling this year. But talk about some overpaid players there.
Oh,
Um, Duchesne and Johansson is your 1-2 punch down the middle, and not really getting anything out of them the past year plus now.
yeah, it's there's Yeah, I don't know what you do with that team. I really have no idea. I think Poyle's time has got to maybe taken its
He's on the hot seat for sure.
time to move on. I think and give somebody else a shot. Get a new vision there.
Hmm.
All right, we'll head to the Edmonton Oilers and the Ottawa Senators. Um, the it was I watched the game. I mean, Ottawa definitely is starting to come together as a team now a little bit. You got to give that
Hmm.
and props to Murray to turning things around, and that was quick because
Hmm.
he looked like an absolute disaster. And then now he's the reason why they're being kept in games. Quite the turnaround.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely noticing things get a lot better as has turned things around the past 4 games that he's played here. As an idea of how bad Murray was to start the season, in his last 3 starts, he has a save percentage of 947, 938, and 941, all which are absolutely fantastic. His save percentage on the season is
Yes.
still just 883.
Yeah.
So that shows just how abysmal he was to start the year for the Ottawa Senators. But the last 3 games, he's absolutely turned things around. His goals against numbers have come way down. He's only given up 2 goals per game in his last 3. Like I said, he's stopped 947, 938, 941. Very good save percentage numbers. Unfortunately, he's only won one of those games because it's the Ottawa Senators. But
Right.
um, individually, individually, his um, his play has just been significantly better over the last few games, and we're starting to see Ottawa not getting blown out
Yeah.
and actually staying in games now, and that's a great sign for the Senators, who hopefully will get a little bit better as this year goes along and start to maybe put some wins in the win column, which they desperately need.
Yeah. We. I mean, a young team like this, you don't want to see them getting blown out all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and for the sake of the Ottawa fans, that to see an improvement of the team as they go, and it's just not fun to watch a team that's young like this have a bad goaltender too. Like
Hmm.
it's almost painful to watch. You know,
Yeah.
it's not good hockey. It's not good for the game. So it's great that Murray is starting to come around. And I mean, both of us were pretty when before the season started. We had a lot of question marks on Murray, but we did mention that I at least I did that Ottawa has shown that they can. They brought up did some good things for goaltenders, helped Anderson's career. Hogberg is progressed very well. They do have some good goaltender coaches there, so we'll put our trust in them that they know what they're doing, and it seems like they possibly could. I will say that I don't think Brandstrom's going back down anytime soon. He looked really good last night.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because I believe he got injured.
Did he?
There was news out today that he was going to be out for a little bit. He got injured, which stinks because he was a guy that I was really looking forward to. I mean, 21-year-old defenseman really looked like he was ready to make that full-time jump, and that no, he was not going back down. That he was going to stick at the NHL level.
Yeah.
Um, but hopefully it's not a long-term thing with him, and he can get back up into the lineup quickly. Because I think you look at that decor, obviously very young. They've got Sanderson in the pipeline, taken fifth overall this past year. They already have Shabbat. That now Brandstrom coming up. You're starting to see some of those young guys. Sanderson will probably be there within the next year or two. Um,
Yeah.
you're starting to see the fruits of the rebuild start to kind of show up here. And it's still definitely a process and going to be a little bit, but Ottawa does have a have a bright future with a lot of the young talent that they have.
Yeah, it is going to be a bright future, and like I said, it won't be if Murray doesn't become what they said they're going to be, and it looks like he is, and that's wonderful. Talk about young guys. Evan Bouchard also looked really good last night. Has looked good ever since they put him in there. Has a blistering shot from the point,
Hmm.
I must say. But his overall game has been good, and he played 16 and a half minutes last night, and was on the ice for some pretty important times. So the coach is Tippett is really giving this guy a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and that's great to see. Evan Bouchard is a guy that I mean, this is a team in Edmonton that's really struggled with defense. I mean, we know that they've been able to find some superstar forwards there with McDavid and Draisaitl, but defensively, it's kind of been a struggle for the Oilers. And they took Bouchard back in the 2018 draft, 10th overall, and now he's 21. He's had some time to develop, and he's really making that jump to the NHL level now. And hopefully he sticks long term and can be a stabilizing force to that back end going forward because they need all the defensive help they can get, particularly with Clefbaum out for the season.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So Duchesne and Johansson just don't produce enough. You're absolutely right. We talked about that. I talked about that to death. They need. I don't know what to do with Duchesne. Johansson maybe in a different role on a different team could do something, but well, the combination is really not working out there. Um, I think Gallant might be on the top. Oh no, he was talking about Gallant to the Preds. Well, that would be good. I mean, Gallant.
That'd be a huge win for Nashville, but I think Gallant's holding out for Seattle.
I do too. I think he is, and that's the thing is there aren't
He
too.
would have a job by now.
You would think so. I really
Yeah.
think that Seattle's going to be the one that where he ends up as well. Um, the only other one I can think of off that there's that's the thing is there isn't really much out there as far as coaches off the top of my head, unless you're going to go back to Babcock. But even young coaches that are ready to take over, I nothing's really popping in my head that way either.
Yeah, I agree. Just kind of go off the top of my head, I don't think there are a ton of great candidates that I can think of on the free agent market as far as coaching goes, other than Gerard Gallant, who stands out to me as the number one guy. So that'd be interesting. You definitely have to try and maybe go in an unorthodox direction if you were going to fire a coach and make some sort of move, or maybe you just wait till the end of the season and try to pull an assistant coach off of a team and give them, a head coaching chance or something like that. But
Yeah,
Gallant stands out to me as the top coach out there, and I think he would have had a job by now if he wanted it. I think he's holding out for Seattle.
yeah, I agree. Bruce Boudreau is out there, and that's an option. I think he'd be better, Bruce Boudreau. The problem he's has brought a lot of teams to the playoffs. It's been in the playoffs that Bruce Boudreau has had difficulty, but
Yeah,
um, it'd be worth the shot. Then there's a couple assistants out there that that I'm sure there's a couple assistants out there that have been trying to make it up for a while to be a coach, but they're just not coming to my head. I just didn't think Hines was a very wise move. Um,
no, I've never been a John Hines fan.
Especially after a guy like Laviolette, to take a newer coach. I don't know. It's just weird. It was a weird move. It was a weird move.
Yeah, and what did Hines really do in New Jersey? He had that one good year that was Taylor Hall's freak MVP year, where they made it as the second wild card team into the playoffs. They still barely made the playoffs,
Yeah.
and that was his only time making the playoffs in New Jersey, and then they stunk after that. So I just didn't see where the resume was there for John Hines to get another head coaching job right away, where it really didn't go all that well with the Devils.
Yeah, I mean, he came with a huge resume as a prodigy type coach, almost the same as Paul Maurice. Like he was born to be a coach, and probably over time he will do well. I just think sometimes they put these guys in situations that are just in over their head. Dallas Eakins in Edmonton was a good example of that.
Yeah.
You know, he's probably going to be a great coach, but there's a process still. It's not throwing guys into, or another guy was in Philadelphia, uh, Hackstall.
Oh
Hackstall.
yeah, Dave Haxtell from he was at the University of North Dakota for a long time and then
Yeah,
made that jump to the NHL and
yeah. And
he had one or two decent years in Philly and then the train kind of fell off the tracks there.
yeah, yeah. I talked to a lot of Philadelphia guys that are sort of insiders in there. Jamie Basco is part of the Steel Flyers umbrella too. Fantastic writer.
Mhm.
And they said he just lost the room
Yeah.
eventually. There was just it's you got to learn how to work with guys that are making millions of dollars. The best to the best is a little
Yep.
different than working with college kids. You
Yeah,
know,
coaching in
uh,
the NHL and coaching in college are completely different.
yeah, and I just don't think it's wise to jump in without being an assistant and living in that environment and stuff like that,
Mhm.
right? So,
Well, the
yeah,
Rangers did that with David Quinn. Quinn was at
yeah,
Boston University and then he just jumps over to be the head coach of the Rangers and that's been a little bit of a bumpy road at times, and we're seeing that this year. There's already Rangers fans are already quickly losing their patience with Quinn.
yeah,
Um, so I agree. I think especially those college guys, because it's a whole new world when you go from college to the NHL. They should probably do a couple years as an assistant first before they look at getting a head coaching job.
yeah, or minor leagues. But I mean, most of those college coaches get paid pretty well, so it's not like they are, you know, relishing the idea of taking a pay cut to play in the minor leagues. I imagine it would be a pay cut to be a
Yeah,
coach in the minor leagues. So
probably yes.
a little bit difficult, maybe even as an assistant as well. But it's hard to say. But Quinn came as like that prodigy type guy, and he's been doing okay. But I still think he would have been better off to be an assistant in the NHL before they moved him on. And if a team really did like him as a future head coach, pay him highly as an assistant,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and bring him in and let him
Groom
do
him
that and do it.
to be the
Then
next head coach.
exactly. Okay, let's move on to the next game. Oh, we'll talk. Oh, I did want to mention Smith is back for the Oilers and had a great game. We'll see how long that holds on to, but at least Koskinen went off, could take a break first for one game. I think he played 8 or 9 games in a row there, and he was looking pretty tired by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
So good to see that Smith is back. I love Smith as a player. It's just 38 years old. His body's really broken down. He's been a Warrior his whole career. I
Yep.
hope he does well because I am an Oilers fan, but honestly, I'm not confident of it at all. Now we'll go to a very interesting game. That being the Maple Leafs and the Canucks, where the Maple Leafs kind of stole one, didn't they?
Yeah, the Canucks vastly outshot Toronto in this game, but at the end of the day, the shot count doesn't matter. It's the score count that does, and the Leafs come away with a 3-1 win. They scored two in the third period, and Vancouver just couldn't answer. And I've jumped ship on this Canucks team. I know you're still holding out hope for them because of their schedule, but I've jumped ship on this Canucks team. This team's even like they didn't play a bad game last night, and they still couldn't find a way to win. So I mean, they're falling so far behind now in the standings where they've played 16 games already, and they're only 6-10. That's a big hole to try and climb out of, especially when I don't think Edmonton's played their best hockey yet. Um, it's going to be difficult for Vancouver to try and climb back into this. They just, it's funny, they score a ton of goals, and then the one game where you actually play okay defensively, you don't score, you score one, and that's it. And you miss out on an opportunity. So, yeah, Toronto kind of stole the game, but for the Leafs, they keep rolling, and they've got 10 wins now on the season. And for Vancouver, it's more of the same. And unfortunately, they now have 10 losses on the season.
Yeah. Well, my main problem or my main concern for Vancouver was Holtby.
Hmm.
and it's starting to kind of show up as a concern. I really found it odd that they went back to Holtby here after what happened. That to me was a story of the night of this game.
Yep.
That after him, the big thing where he basically rolls his eyes to his bench
Yep.
because of the way they're playing, and Green says, to me, I could be wrong, but to me, this was Green going, okay, now you got to put up,
Yeah.
right? You're going to talk down your defense. You're going to say all this stuff like that, which, let's face it, they have been playing poorly, and maybe you can understand some frustration, but in the way he did it was icky.
Hmm.
The way he did it was icky. And then he comes out and, I mean,
That stabilizing force on the bat on in goal and kind of be a nice complement to a young goaltender like Thatcher Demko. And Holtby hasn't played well. Demko hasn't played well. The team as a whole has been absolutely lost defensively. And now the one game that they do have a chance to win, that they do play somewhat decently defensively and only allow 19 shots against, Holtby gives up 3 goals and the offense is nowhere to be found. And it's 3-1 and they still lose. So I'm massively disappointed with the Vancouver Canucks this year.
yeah, again, I still think they'll turn it around. I do believe that they will turn it around. Uh, the but as far as the Toronto Maple Leafs are concerned, they didn't play their best game at all.
No.
I think they looked like they had beaten Vancouver so much. I was a little worried about this game because when you beat a team, when a team beats a team like that,
Hmm.
almost inevitably there's going to be the game where they take them lightly,
Yep.
and that was seemed to be the game that Toronto took them lightly, and yet they still win it. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is that's what championship teams are all about. Championship teams do that. They just, like you've mentioned it several times, with what Philly's been doing and Boston's been doing, and it's just that finding a way to win mentality. You
Hmm.
hear it as a cliche with players all the time, and now it seems, at least early in the season, where they have that about them. And that bodes well for Toronto Maple Leafs fans that have been sitting, that have been ever waiting for this team to become a cup, to win a cup since 1976 or whatever the heck it is.
67.
67. I got it the other way. My dyslexia creeps up its ugly head again. Yeah. So yeah, it does bode well for that. It's the first time I've really seen a Toronto team in a very long time, since the Sundin era, Gilmore era, I think,
Hmm.
I would guess, that has that pushback and ability to win the ugly games a bit.
Yeah, this Toronto team definitely looks like they're on a different level than where they have been the last few years, where the talent was obviously there, but they just never could live up to it, and they could never be that elite team that they were supposed to be. This year it looks totally different. This year it looks like they're finally going to be that elite team that they're supposed to be. They're right near, um, they're winning a ton. League standings, they are at the top of the league standings with 21 points. They've won 10 games already. The only team in the league that's won double-digit games. I've been very, very impressed with the Maple Leafs this year. And this was definitely an ugly win, but it was still a win, and that's what matters. They got the job done. And this is kind of a certain level of pushback that we haven't seen from the Leafs, where they have been able to win these kind of games. And it looks like, at least for the regular season, they're going to be one of the top teams in the league this year, as they should be. My question with them still remains about the playoffs. I think they're finally looking like that team in the regular season, but until they win a playoff series, that's going to be the one thing that kind of hangs over them, is their inability to win in the playoffs. So
Yeah.
I certainly hope they're able to do better in the postseason this year than they have been. I'd love to see them actually get by the first round. Um, but I don't think you can really talk Stanley Cup until they at least win a series in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm just saying that. Yeah, and I mean, I totally agree with that. The fact that they seem to have this ability to win these type of games and have a pushback like they do right now
Yeah,
leads me to more inclined to thinking that they can have that.
yeah,
Before
for sure.
before I never saw that in Toronto. I would be saying in the regular season, yeah, this is great, but I don't see a playoff team here. I see a regular season team, and we know that those are two different things.
Absolutely.
Tampa Bay showed us that in spades,
Yep.
and they won the cup by bringing in. Now Toronto did bring in. We've talked about it several times. One of them is injured right now, and we'll see how they work out. But you have Jason Spezza that's playing a significant role, and just the overall team. That energy has changed. It seems.
Yeah, for sure. It feels like a different Toronto team this year than what we've seen in the last few, for sure. Where, they were that flashy regular season team, but didn't have the grit and grind factor that it takes to win in the postseason, and that's why they've continued to lose in the postseason. Then they go out, they bring in T.J. Brody to stabilize their back end. They bring in Wayne Simmons, who unfortunately broke his wrist and is going to be out for 6 weeks, but
Yeah,
hopefully he comes back, fully healthy. If you get, a fresh, healthy, and rested Wayne Simmons for the end of the season and into the playoffs, they added Zach Bogosian as a kind of physical depth guy to the back end. This is definitely a different Toronto team, and I think that they're better built now to go and win in the postseason than they were the last few years. And I'd love to see him do it. I would love to see him actually be able to pull it off and do it. Um, because I
yeah,
think this is the best Toronto team that I can remember for sure since, certainly since back in the Sundin era.
yeah. Sundin and Gilmore and Clark and all of those guys. I thought that was some pretty solid teams that just about made it to the finals that one year. It was against LA. But I agree. This is definitely the best team that they've put together for a while. Um, so we'll move on to our next game here. We are having a little bit of technical issues. I got to turn it on and off all the time. Sorry about you guys out there. Uh, Lightning versus the Preds. Where did we talk about the Lightning versus the Preds?
We have not done this one yet.
No. So Lightning versus the Preds. McElhaney with his first game of the season. I do believe it was his first game that he
Yes.
started in the season.
Yes.
Predators put Rene in, um, and Rene. Well, he's just it's pretty much got to be his last year, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that this is Pekka Rinne's last go around in the NHL, given how he looked last year and now. I mean, it wasn't even that he was bad in this game. He only gave up a couple of goals. The other two were empty netters. He had a 939 save percentage in the game, but he wasn't able to get the win. And Nashville is just struggling right now. They're dropped to 5-7 on the year. I could go in depth about the Predators and their issues and where I think that team is headed, but um, Tampa Bay continues to roll like the Tampa Bay Lightning do. And even when they don't play their best, they still pick up games and win, and that's what they did. Sorelli had a couple of goals. Coleman and Stammer had empty netters to close it out. They only gave up one goal. McElhaney, for having not played in so long, looked very, very good. He stopped 23 out of 24 shots. And things keep on rolling for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Nashville is in trouble.
Big trouble. They had Michael McCarron. I think it's Michael
Yep,
McCarron in the
yep.
lineup last night. That he's not an NHL player. He didn't look like an NHL player last night. It was some sort of desperation to bring size in, I
Yeah, that's what
guess.
it looks like, but
And when you look, yeah,
didn't exactly work.
no. And I guess looking at the lineup, you could say that is kind of the issue, isn't it? They don't really have size in this lineup. Not much size in this lineup at all. That plays with any size whatsoever. It might be their biggest problem.
Yeah, for me the biggest issue is that their star players just aren't producing. I mean, their top guys aren't playing like top guys. They actually dressed a very physical lineup last night. I mean, Yakov Trenin is a
Yeah.
bottom six guy who can play physically. They had Matthew Olivier in the lineup, who big time fighter coming up from the AHL. He actually fought last night against Luke Shen. They had McCarron in the lineup, who's been a fourth line guy. His one of those tweeners, fourth liners between the AHL and the NHL. But they actually did have some size in the lineup last night. But look at the numbers here. Forsberg, no points, -3. Duchesne, 1 assist, -3. Granlund, 1 assist, -2. Arvidsson, no points, -3. Ellison, Yossi on the back end, both -3. Uh, I, their top players are not playing like top players,
Yeah.
and that is absolutely destroying this Predators team. They are not getting nearly enough production out of their top guys.
And I think that's part of the reason why they brought some size out of the minors to do that.
Hmm.
And but I think they need. It would be very beneficial for them to have guys that can play that have size.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
and maybe it would help the Duchesne and Granlund and all of these guys to have somebody there that like what they did in Montreal with Anderson. Of course, those guys are not easy to find, but
Yeah.
they're kind of essential in the NHL. And I'm just noticing with Nashville that they really don't have anybody that can play in their top six that has much size at all.
Yeah,
Um,
there's no size in the top six.
yeah, and that really I think is might be the biggest problem. It's hard to be out there when you're all, you don't have anybody to push back with you against some of the team's top lines. They're playing against Tampa Bay, who they don't have guys in their top six that are gonna like, but they do have Killorn and Palat will push back, and
Hmm.
Maroon of course is there, and Goudreau can play. They got guys that are like gonna gonna are growly guys in their lineup that they
Coleman,
learned.
Yanni Gord.
Yeah, Yanni Gord. Yeah, they got even Sorelli's small, but he
Oh,
plays.
Sorelli's got a big, he plays with a huge chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. There you
Yep.
go. You just nailed it. That's why I've got you here. That's why you're the goat. A chip on the shoulder. They don't have that in Nashville. They want guys to be like that. Like Trennan can, but he can't play up in the top six.
Yeah.
He can go out there and hit a few guys, and then he's off. He plays
Yep.
your 10 minutes. They brought McCarron. McCarron played 8 minutes. That's probably the most McCarron's played in the NHL for since he was in Montreal.
Yep.
And in that 8 minutes, they realized he wasn't an NHLer. And last night I watched it, and he's not an NHLer. Holla was supposed to provide that, but and he played 17 minutes last night. They're desperately looking for guys that can get them some chip on their shoulder out there. They need a spark, and they don't really have it in the lineup, and that's the problem. Boriecki came in for that. He's
He
only
didn't even
playing
have a
the
hit.
yeah.
Borowiecki didn't even have a hit last night. That's rare for him.
Yeah, and it kind of tells you the energy of this lineup. And that's
Yeah.
really where the problem is. When you can't even get Borietsky to have enough, to feed off the energy enough to hit somebody, you got a problem.
San Jose Sharks, where if this goes really south, they're in trouble because they've got guys locked into long-term deals like Johansson, like Duchesne, um, like Forsberg. These guys are on big contracts, and if they're not producing, you're in trouble there in Nashville. And getting rid of some of those contracts is definitely going to be an issue. And then if you throw the whole, you throw, Colton Sissons isn't a big contract. Now, Forsberg's up after next season, actually. So Forsberg, they could actually potentially move because he's up after next season. But Ellis and Yossi on the back end are both signed for as long as cap friendly goes. So they're gonna need. They're gonna need those guys. Yossi, won the Norris Trophy last year. I'm not really worried about Roman Yossi. I'm more worried about this Duchesne contract at $8 million through 2026, and also Ryan Johansson at $8 million through 2025. Those are the two contracts that I think really could come back and bite this team. Not to mention they're going to be still paying Kyle Turris $2 million per season for as far as cap friendly goes, because they had to buy him out after last year. So not a great situation for the Nashville Predators. Maybe not as dire as San Jose, but it's a very similar dynamic as the Sharks, where if these top guys who are getting paid a ton of money don't perform, they're they're gonna be in big time trouble.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's quite as dire. They have contracts that are a little more tradable. At least a general manager can look at this lineup and say, maybe if we surrounded Johansson is a big guy. That's about the thing. But he doesn't play big. He doesn't play aggressive. He doesn't play with the chip on his shoulder,
Yeah,
which is sort of why Tortorella kind of nudged them to move him on if
move
they
them
could
out. Yep.
find a defenseman, right? Um, but I think he could have a role. It's just not on this team. Like
Hmm.
he would have to be on a team that already has something like that, guys like that in the lineup. Like the
Yeah,
Dallas Stars with a guy like Pavelski or
Ben
and Ben and Roman and not Romanoff,
Radulov.
Radulov.
Yeah.
These are guys that already have that chip on their shoulder, gritty game to them. He could
Hmm.
probably find a fit in something like that. But if you don't already have that, Johansson's not going to provide it for you, and that's really what the problem is in Nashville. Um, they may, they would be like the guy that they should have threw everything at. I think was Stone,
Yeah,
but
he would have been a really good fit there.
I mean, I suppose Stone would be a really good fit anywhere,
Yeah, he's a heck of
but
a player.
but certainly that type of mentality is what they need there. They need somebody that's going to take some people by the scruff of the neck. A
Hmm.
couple other guys that come to mind are like Foligno in Columbus or Foligno in what is it about Foligno? Is it to have that personality?
Wow, they play like their father.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they need a guy that's going to really just take these guys and kind of shake them around a little bit and say, let's go, right?
Yep.
You don't have that in Nashville. You just don't have it. It's too bad because the Nashville fans are off the chain, man. Like they're not there now, but when they're there, they
Yeah.
deserve that. They deserve that kind of a lineup. They come in droves. They party. They enjoy the game. Uh, they get people from outside the league kind of. Some people maybe roll their eyes when you think of Nashville as a hockey city, but it certainly is. Anybody
Yeah.
that I know that's gone there said they have embraced the game immensely. So it's time to put a team there, I say.
The the thing about Nashville is that they never replaced Mike Fisher. Mike Fisher was the heartbeat of that team, and he
True.
was that skilled top six guy who also could fight and bring all of this energy and attitude to the lineup. And they never found another player like Mike Fisher. And when he retired, that was downhill. It was all downhill from there for the Predators. And what's frustrating about it is when you look at the Predators roster on paper, they should be a good team. Like they should be a playoff contending team in
Yeah.
that division when you look at that roster on paper, but they are just not performing.
No, it's a sad case there in Nashville for sure. I guess we'll move on to another game here. We only have one more go to go, and then we'll talk about the games a little bit for tonight.
Yep. St. Louis and Arizona.
Yeah, I'm
This
gonna
was quite an ending to this one.
get rid of some tabs here. Maybe that's the problem. I got the stream is going in and out, in and out, in and out. Coyotes versus the Blues, right? Here's this Blues team sputtering
Yeah.
since what I was talking to with Projo yesterday is there was some insiders. I read a lot of hockey too.
Hmm.
I like good writers, and there was a lot of people inside the Blues organization that said that the Blues aren't going to recover if they do this with Peter Angelo. And it's early, but you got to wonder. This is not the Blues team we're used to seeing.
No, for Blues fans because they had the game like the game was over.
Oh
They had
yes,
won. They were up. They were up 3-2, and they gave up a goal with less than 1 second left. 0.7 seconds left on the clock. They give up that goal to Keller. And
yeah,
those are just absolute backbreakers. And then they go on to lose the game in a shootout. So St. Louis did get a point out of the game, and they are still in first place in the West. But it's not been a great performance so far this year for the Blues. And they've particularly not had a good time with this Coyotes team, who I believe they've played 4 times already this year, and that's going to continue for another 3. They're going to end up playing 7 times in a row because of the Wild in Colorado having some COVID issues. So the Blues and Coyotes are going to keep playing, and the Coyotes have definitely been getting the better of them in this season series so far. And something just seems off about this Blues team.
yeah. It
Um,
does. It does. It doesn't. Something's amiss. I guess the first thing that's going to come to your mind is Peter Angelo,
hmm
but Arizona with Rick Tocchet, and normally you would say the same with Craig Berube type
Yep.
team, is they. I mean, they don't have much talent on that team, and they're almost certainly not going to make the playoffs, but they don't give up. And what I see with St. Louis is they're struggling with teams like that.
hmm
They're relying too much on their skill. Like that's not what St. Louis does. They're playing like a team that will make the like we were talking about with Toronto. That
Yeah, it certainly looks like it, and they were one and done in the postseason last year as well,
right.
um, to Vancouver in the first round. So, yeah, they do. It feels like they don't have that I don't even know how what to say. Maybe like the not the yeah, I guess the hard work factor, like that, just that like tenaciousness to come back in games and to seal wins when you have a lead, and just they are relying on skill, and that's not what the Blues are. They're not a Toronto Maple Leafs type team. They're a St. Louis Blues type team, which means they need to outwork the opponent, and they're right now being outworked by the Arizona Coyotes, and the Coyotes are bearing the fruits of that. And we'll see what happens. They still play each other a bunch more times, 3 more in a row against the Coyotes now. Um, but I don't know. This something I would not pick this Blues team to go far in the playoffs, given the way that they're playing right now. Maybe come May that changes and they do start looking like the Blues again. But right now, something just is not right with St. Louis. And even though they've got a pretty decent record at 7-4-2, and they are in first place in the division, it just feels like this Blues team could be a lot better.
Yeah, it's that they're like we talked about an identity with a team, and with the Blues you identify with a heavy team that beats you down and wears
Yep.
you out in a game.
Yep.
And I'm not seeing that with the Blues this year like I normally do so far. Um, they did well. There we go. I'm trying to get the stats up for the game, but I see
hmm
O'Reilly scored a couple.
Yep.
Usual. They're getting by.
Yeah.
That's really what you're saying about the Blues. Or what you say about the Blues right now is they're
Yeah.
getting by.
Absolutely. They're getting by, and that's it. They're not looking great in doing it.
Yeah, and that's not. They're fortunate they're in this division now too. If they had a more difficult division like they do in the North Division or the East Division, the Blues would
hmm
be in trouble right now. They wouldn't be up. They wouldn't have a record like this.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
so yeah, Bennington has been playing not too bad. Again, Coyotes are surviving with Kemper. But the good thing on the Coyotes side, from what I watched last night, Connor Garland has taken his game to new levels this year.
Yeah, and that's great to see because this is a team that needs as much offense as they can get in Arizona. So with a guy like Garland stepping up into a higher role, Keller got the huge game tying goal last night with in that third period with less than a second left. Schmaltz has had a pretty solid season. Christian Dvorak played 24 minutes last night and
Wow.
had 2 points. So he's taken a really big step forward. I think the big thing, the reason the Coyotes have been so good this year, better than a lot of people thought they were going to be, is because these young players have stepped up and have taken on more offensive responsibility and produced offensively at a higher level. Um, and, guys like Keller, Dvorak, Garland, um, I'm missing one, Schmaltz, they are really the guys leading the way.
Yep.
Whereas, Kessel's kind of taken a little bit of a back seat, and Brassard is kind of there as a veteran guy, but doesn't have to play a huge role. He played, under 15 minutes last night. So,
Yep.
um, they're getting that offensive production out of these young guys that they needed to see offensive production out of, and that's why the Coyotes have a record like they do so far this year, where they're above 500.
Yeah, Lawson Krause has got 17 minutes. I
Hmm.
watched him last night. I mean, he's never going to be a huge scorer, but he does make some room for some guys out there. It's really good to have. Uh, Barrett Hayton's still finding his way there. But the whole point of the matter is they've been really patient with these guys and it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, patience is key, and I think patience is going to be key with Barrett Hayton. He's still only 20. Yes,
Yeah.
he was taken very high in the draft, but to me, he still only has 1 point this year. I don't think he's really ready. Um, I don't honestly. I'd look to send Hayton down and let him get some more time in the minors because it does feel like they're rushing him a little bit. 1 point in 11 games. I think he might be better suited to go down and rip it up in the A a little bit before trying to make this NHL jump. He's still only 20 years old, and they've been so patient with everyone else.
But they're
Where
playing him a lot, aren't they? Yeah, because he's so advanced defensively, and that's the reason why they drafted him. He was drafted ahead of a very prolific player too. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. It was
I
a
think it was
surprise that he,
Zadina.
yeah, and Hughes, and yeah, there's a lot of guys there because Zadina was drafted ahead of Hughes.
Yeah, Barrett Hayton went fifth overall in 2018, and Zadina and Hughes were the next two picks.
That's right. And they said that they loved the defensive part of his game, and they saw him as uh, like a Braden Point type player.
Hmm.
So I mean, he's are keeping up with that. But if he could become a two-way 60-point player, that'd be fantastic. But I agree that compared to, then again, Dvorak, they played early in his career too. They just didn't try to move him up the lineup that fast. They let him
Yeah.
play in the third line, the fourth line. A team that used to do this a lot, they would play their guys higher, but they would play the guys up in the NHL earlier, is what I mean to say. But they
Hmm.
would play them lower minutes and just work them in. Was the Detroit Red Wings back in the day?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and,
Yeah, I
and, and
remember Detroit bringing in guys like Keith Primo and Mike Sillinger back in the 90s, and
mhm.
they were guys like that had a lot of upwards potential, and you knew were going to be good players, but they played very, very low in the lineup in very low minutes at the beginning of their careers, and then as their careers took off, you started to see them take on much bigger roles, and in a lot of cases with different teams they ended up getting traded. But um, that's a great point. Detroit did do that a lot, particularly in the 90s, where they would play guys, very young players in the NHL lineup, but just give them low minutes in a lower part of the lineup.
Yeah, and that may be the model. I mean, Armstrong is in there now. I like Armstrong. I think he
Mm-hmm.
did some great things. Well, obviously, he helped build a fantastic team there in St. Louis.
Yep.
Uh, and I think he's going to do. I think he's a much better fit than Shaka for sure. In Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
it's this rebuild might not be the way Dvorak and them are playing right now. This rebuild or build, I guess, it's not really a
Mm-hmm.
rebuild right now. May not be that because I mean they got all the defensemen. They got four defensemen coming off the books next year.
Yep.
If they want to sign them for cheaper or whatever, uh, Goligoski, Jalmerson.
Yeah.
I think Demers is done. That's if they want to sign him for cheaper or whatever, but he can start putting his mark on this team. It's going to be really interesting to see next year what the Arizona Coyote look like.
Yep.
Um, there's been talk of Kemper being traded. I don't see it. There's no way they're
No,
going to
I
try to.
wouldn't trade Kemper.
Well, the idea was that they'll go for you'd have to scorch rebuild if you're going to get rid of Kemper, but I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Joe. His Flyers games were postponed against Washington. I feel bad for everybody. That Washington Philly game is going to be fantastic. I really.
Yeah, I was supposed to stream it. I was really looking forward to that game. It really does suck. These East Division teams have got to get it together because that's really the only division getting absolutely ravaged with it right now is the East. Everyone else, Central had theirs at the start of the year, but has been fine since. North Division has not had a single game postponed yet up in Canada. The West, you've got Vegas just came back, so they're back rolling. Colorado looks like they're probably going to come back on Sunday. So Minnesota is really the only team that's having a big issue out west. It's the East Division. These teams have got to get it together.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just coincidence or what's going on in the East. I don't know if their lockdown stuff is different in the East or how people are following it or whatever the case may be. I know in Canada it's very stringent, the lockdown. However, I wouldn't say like we don't have police on the road or anything like that, but people generally adhere to it. I hear a lot of
Hmm.
stories about things not being the case in the United States in some areas. I'm not sure about that, but I don't find that here in Canada. I find people wear their masks everywhere they go. People are fairly respectful of the fears of others that they don't, like put stuff on their hands when they go out and do everything basically they're told on a fairly regular basis. I don't see a lot of partying going on or anything like that, but that might be just my little world. I don't know. But whatever's going on, if to get hockey back, stop it.
Yeah.
If you're not doing it, stop it. We all want to get back to the world again and get back to going. I want to get back to the gym. I miss my gym. And I certainly don't want to be losing hockey this year. Then I'll be spitting mad.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I can't afford to lose any games.
No, I can't afford my. Then I got to start thinking of things other than hockey, and things get ugly when that happens. Let me tell you right now, that's not what you want my brain to start doing. I'll tell you that. Just for that alone, put that out there as an APB to the world. Yeah, you don't want that. I don't know. I don't know if I'm right. I'm not saying that I am right about that. I'm just hearing what it is. But whatever's happening out east there, it would be better if it was kind of moved around a little bit. I mean, we do have Colorado and Minnesota in the west too, right?
Yeah, but I haven't heard anything new from Colorado in a while, so I feel like they're going to come back on Sunday when they're supposed to.
Hmm. And when's Minnesota? Are you aware of that?
They
You
got
would get.
extended even longer. They're in the same shape as Buffalo, pretty much, where they just keep adding to the extension of how long they're out. Seems like they've got a pretty big outbreak there with the Wild.
Wow. Well, Well, all we can do is take it one game at a time, one day, as they like to say. A
Yep.
big cliche. We're doing that as people now,
Yeah.
taking it one day at a time, hoping that there's hockey the next day. And I think things will get figured out. Dude, it's just tough. It's just difficult to see teams not playing and how the league's going to do now. Talk about possibly 42 games. I doubt that. I think they'll extend the season before that ever happens.
Well, their problem is they can't go beyond the Olympic or when the Olympics are going to be in the summer for television purposes because NBC covers the Olympics. So unless you don't want the playoffs televised in the US, you have to be
Uh,
done before the Olympics.
well, that's true. Yeah, yeah. That's. I'm surprised the Olympics is just so gung ho on the go to go here too. Like, you better hope things are moving come that time, or what a, yeah, wow. That's a lot
Yeah.
of people gathered in one place right there.
Yeah. I don't it's supposed to be in Japan, I believe. So I have no idea where Japan's at with things, but the Olympics are a full go for now, and NBC has the TV rights, so they're going to be, the NHL's got their back up against a wall quite a bit.
Oh, nice. Oh, I mean, that's not nice. But uh, NHL and NHNR, I like to call him, Hinner. Uh, he did my logo thing and he sent it on my email, so I'll check that out. That's
Oh,
pretty cool.
nice. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
well, regardless of whether there is actual games going or not, the Perlo show will continue. There'll be no COVID here at the Perlo show.
Yes,
And
that's good.
there's still there'll always be hockey to talk about, whether we got to archive old history or talk about who's the best ever or whatever. And there'll definitely be off the wall. Will still be doing his videos, and we'll
Yep.
still be doing live shows that way. So it ain't gonna stop.
Yeah, I went 5 months without hockey last year and still survived. So
We made her.
we'll pull it off again, hopefully. But
Well,
I really don't want this season to get affected any more than it already has been. They need to get this under control and get these games in here.
absolutely. So let's look at tomorrow. Talking about games, we'll look at or tonight's games. I did
Yep.
that yesterday too. And then tomorrow there's only two.
Yes.
So we'll be talking a lot about tonight's games tomorrow. Yeah, so I'll be back tomorrow, probably with Projo again.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy that has the most availability right now.
Yep.
But okay, we'll start off with the Wings and Panthers. This is actually an interesting game.
Yeah, I'm looking for a huge bounce back from Florida. Um, that obviously very disappointing for them to lose to the Red Wings in their first game. So I'm hoping for a big bounce back from Florida tonight for sure. I think that they should come out with a little bit more energy and a little bit. I think they took Detroit lightly in that first matchup. I think they kind of went into it knowing that they were clearly expected.
The honest truth. I thought they played really well. They played a strong system. They played a positive game. They looked confident. And I'm not so sure about tonight. I don't like Bobrovsky yet at all. And Bobrovsky's in for Florida.
Yep.
I'm either fading this game or I'm looking at a PL on Detroit. I'm just not confident with Bobrovsky and net. I promised myself I'm not betting with him in net anymore. I'm not putting a pick on him anymore. Hey, McKeel, how you doing there, buddy? Welcome to the live. I'll take a quick look here if I got the email. Which I'm gonna have to look on my computer, so I'll be looking afterwards. You sent it to uh, Duncan Family 12 NHL reports, so I'll look at it after I do the stream here. Um, yeah, I just don't like Bobrovsky at all, and we've talked about it over and over again about how devastating it could be for the Panthers. I think Drager's their number one right now, honestly.
Well, Drager's certainly been playing better. He's got a 197 goals against and a 937 save percentage to Bobrovsky's 357 goals against and 881 save percentage. So
Horrible.
Drager's definitely been a much better goaltender for them. I just don't see the Panthers losing two in a row to the Red Wings. I don't think there's going to be many opportunities for the Red Wings to win consecutive games this season. Um, so
Yeah,
I would hope that Florida's better tonight.
I think that Florida will win, but it'll probably be by one goal. They'll probably have to scrape it out.
Yeah,
Um,
I think they'll get the 2 points though.
yeah, I think they likely will. Like I said, after what I saw from the game the last time they played, it's. I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit won again. I really wouldn't be surprised, especially with Bobrovsky. If it was it, with Bobrovsky, and I would just be shooting lots on him,
Mm-hmm.
and you're probably doing okay to do that. Next game, Oilers versus Senators. Back at her again. This time with Koskinen in net,
Yep.
Hogberg in net for Ottawa. Which um, his stats don't look great, but he's not a bad goaltender.
No,
It's
but his
just the team,
stats are brutal.
yeah, pretty horrible.
Really, really bad. 0-4 with a 4.54 goals against and an 844 save percentage.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely thinking the Oilers are going to win this. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I will say that the Senators have steadily improved this year. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
They look a heck of a lot better. I mean, you had to really. You
Yeah,
couldn't keep.
they didn't have much of a choice. I mean, they didn't even look like an NHL team to start the season. So they are definitely playing better in Ottawa. I don't think they win this game. The Oilers should absolutely win this game, but hopefully it's at least a close one. And I do think,
Yeah, I think it might be a close one. I'm not really confident in my Oilers, but that might be like you with the Boston Bruins syndrome. Like, you know, I kind of expect. I have a reason though. You've won cups recently with the boss. I have a reason to expect little from my Oilers. So we'll see. We'll see. I can't stand watching tourists on the ice. It's really driving me crazy that he isn't better than he is.
yep,
Uh, and their defense is kind of clown like still, especially with Bear not in there.
yep,
So it's the Draisaitl and McDavid show still. It hasn't really changed much. It's pretty much the same there, although Nugent Hopkins is playing better and Yamamoto is playing well. And Cahoon, Draisaitl are showing signs of their connection that they've had for a very long time, and
mm-hmm,
those are all better things than they were before. But I'm apprehensive because they can just all of a sudden go back on their heels and try to pretend they're a trap team at any time. And
yeah,
I'm glad there's more than one game on at a time because when they do that, I turn the channel immediately. It's aggravating to watch. Okay, Lightning versus Predators. We just talked. I can't see the Lightning not going 9-1-1 again here.
yeah. No, I definitely expect the Lightning to win this game. They've beaten the Predators every time they've played so far this season. I have no reason to believe that they won't do that again. They just won 4-1 last night. Back-to-back games should be Vasilevsky in tonight because McElhaney played last night. So we'll probably be seeing Vasilevsky versus Saros. That just screams Tampa Bay Lightning to me. Um,
Yeah.
I absolutely have the Lightning in this one, and I'll be streaming this game, so pretty excited for that because these teams have played very physical hockey against each other.
There has been a lot of physicality in this game for sure. I wonder if McCarron will be back in. Probably. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
But I hope it stays close for you for the live.
yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Keep that game close. Um, yeah, it's Tampa Bay all day. Saros, it's getting to the point now where you got to wonder if Saros is ever going to be a number one, right?
Yeah, I honestly I don't know. I think he's likely to be kind of a 1B or he'd probably be decent if you had like another, like if he were with the New York Islanders and you had Saros and Varlamov, I think that
Yeah,
would be a really good tandem. But
yeah,
Saros in the position where he has to kind of be the guy,
yeah.
that I don't think is ever really going to work. And we know that Rene is probably in his final NHL season. So I look at Saros as kind of a 1B or a really good backup, but not really going to go out there and win you a lot of games. And he's got a 3.31 goals against this season, save percentage under 900. It's been a pretty pedestrian start for him.
Yeah, though they haven't played well in front of them, but there's been very few experiments of these smaller goaltenders in the NHL. Hudobin, who never really had a number one role, maybe now more than ever,
Yep.
and that mostly because it's just so difficult in today's NHL for the smaller goaltenders to play the minutes needed. It's the speed of the game, the physicality of the game now for goaltenders, and the level that they have to be at. I think that's mostly it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mental battle to for the shots that they're taking now, and where they need to be, how they need to be relied on now ever before. Because back in the 80s, yeah, goaltenders used to play 72 games, but it wasn't unheard of for a goaltender like Fuhrer. He didn't stop everything, but you scored 6 goals, right?
Yep.
And now in the NHL, that just isn't the case anymore. Teams aren't built to win 7-3 and 6-4 and stuff
Yep.
like that. You really need your goaltender to save you.
Yep.
The, um, an average goaltender is not going to get you a cup too much anymore. It's just not. They got to have goaltenders that are going to steal games for you.
Absolutely.
And Saros just isn't that.
No,
I don't think.
absolutely not.
Not on a regular basis, anyways.
No, not at all. There aren't many Marty Turcos left where, smaller goaltender who's able to take on a full-time starting job and really be a great goaltender for a number of years. It just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, Grant Fuhrer. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
going way back, you had Mike Vernon and
yeah, Mike Vernon. There's a good example. There was a lot of smaller goaltenders back then. Yeah.
yeah, now not at all. I mean, Turco comes to mind, and he played his last game in like what 2012 or something like that, 11 or 12. Like, he was mostly a goalie through the 2000s, so it's been almost a decade since he's even played.
Yeah, and then there was Archer Zerbe.
Yep,
He probably wouldn't have played in the league now, but he might have been the last. He would have been later than Turco, though. He played later than Turco, even. He might have been the last because he was a number one in San Jose for a while there. But
no, he
yeah.
was in the 90s. His last NHL game was in 2004.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
was the San Jose goalie when they first came into the league in the early 90s.
Yeah, he was. He was their original goaltender. Uh, yeah, but there's not too many of those. There's not too many. There's just not. I can't think of any other small goaltenders now that are. There's none that are number ones. None. All the goaltenders
No.
now are big. Every single one.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So our final game for tonight: Ducks versus the Golden Knights, and not much to really talk. Oh, that's the last. Oh no, we still got the Jets and the Flames, right? And the
San
Sharks and the
Jose,
Kings.
LA, Chicago, Dallas.
Okay, we better go through them quick here. Sharks and Night Kings. If the Kings didn't have their injuries on their defense, I'd be all over the Kings here. But I think the Sharks might be able to pull it out. But I would really be fadey on this game. They've just got Kings have a couple injuries on their defense that they can't really afford to have, and that's what's
Yep.
really keeping them back right now. Sharks don't have any injuries, but they might as well have.
Yeah, the Sharks aren't great. Kings aren't off to a good start, and they're dealing with injury problems. Neither of these teams look overly good so far this year, so really tough to say. It's kind of a battle of bad teams here in the West.
Yeah, not much really to say about that. I have a feeling that, well, the Sharks have been on the road forever too. Something about
Yep.
their, like forever, forever. So
Yeah, they
that,
haven't been allowed to play in California. Their particular county that San Jose is in has a ban on contact sports.
yeah. So it's really hard. I mean, they're
They're
not the
playing in
greatest
Arizona. Well, their home games have been in
in
Arizona
Arizona. So
because
completely
Arizona
on,
doesn't have the rules that California does.
they're completely on the road. So it's really hard to get a judge of, they're probably a better team than their stats suggest, but they're still not a playoff team. The Jets and Flames. Um, the Jets get Dubois. That's the big thing tonight for that game, right?
Yep. Yeah,
That'll be fun
Dubois
to watch.
should be in his first game for Winnipeg here tonight, so it'll be interesting to see how he looks in the Jets uniform. And man, this is a big matchup for Calgary, who's chasing the Jets in the standings. They would love to get a win here tonight at home. And for Winnipeg, I mean, they're off to a really, really good start, 7-3-1, which is definitely better than I expected from the Jets this year. So, pretty impressive start for them. And that's going to be a really good game, as a lot of these North Division games have been. It's going to be a really, really good one.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning Calgary there, and that's I just going off the energy of beating Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that Lucic has looked good. What? What is that? He must have lost some weight or something, or I don't know, but he has looked actually pretty good.
Yep.
The energy of that team does seem to be turning a little bit. I don't know. With Dubois being in there, is that a good thing? What is a? I wouldn't put it. I don't think I'd put anything on this game, but I kind of lean Calgary at home simply because it's a very close matchup on paper between the two.
Yep. For sure.
Uh, Flyers Capitals are not happening.
Chicago, Dallas is the last one.
Chicago Dallas.
Missed that
Uh,
one. Yep.
yeah, did I miss that one? Okay, Chicago
Well, we.
Dallas. The Chicago team looks way better than we thought.
Oh
Lankinen,
yeah, Lankinen has been the savior here with the Blackhawks. He looks absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, and that's really what it's all about there. We were like going, what are they going to do? You heard rumors about, or they talked about how they really liked Lankinen kid. Well, I guess they were right. Um,
Yep.
Stan Bowman and his dad have done are not stupid people.
No, that's for sure.
Scotty Bowman's one of the greatest minds in sport, not even just hockey, in sport.
Yep.
A legend, and you have to give him credit when credit is due. Dallas, I don't know what team they are yet. We're gonna find. Maybe they can show us a little bit. They're one team one night, and they haven't found consistency yet. I'm
Yep.
kind of leaning Dallas in this one. But that's probably our full 42%, boys and girls. We'll
Yes.
be in here tomorrow between these exact same times. Thank you all for coming in that came in. NH,